To go to every place you reach, you say the kingdom of heaven is ready. Preach to them. Stay with them. Every house you are not welcome, shake the dust off your feet as a sign against them. But in that verse is a whole chapter. But what I like more is where Jesus says, I thank thee, O Father, that you have hidden these things from the wise and the known and revealed the young and the babes. He turned to his disciples and told them, there are so many prophets, there are so many kings who wanted to see these things, but they are not able to see. I'm saying this as you allow our main case to sit down before I pray. At that time, the 72 came when they were filled with joy. And they told Jesus that even Satan is subjected to us. Jesus told them, I saw Satan fall from heaven like lightning. And I've given you powers to step on all serpents and scorpions. And do not rejoice that Satan is subjected to you, but rejoice that your names are written in the book of life. Can we pray? Shall we pray? Almighty God, I want to thank you for this meeting, that it will start very well. I want to pray, Almighty God, that even as we talk, as we do intervention in terms of nutrition, in terms of food, I want to pray for the head of state, Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta, the deputy president, and all leadership to the governor level, that whatever we do, Almighty God, it shall be well with you. I want to pray that as we continue, guide us. Because, Lord, you told us clearly in Philippians 4 verse 13, that I can do all things through Christ who strengthens us. And I want to come against the evil one. The way it's clear in John 10:10 that Satan comes to steal, destroy, and kill. But I've come so that I may provide life and provide in abundance. Lord, clearly we know what is agreed or not is agreed in heaven. I want to pray all this believing and trusting in the name of our Lord Jesus Christ.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's great to see you again. This is the third day of this conference, the third National Agri-Nutrition Conference. And we've shared a lot. We've had a lot of presentations since the conference began. We've had different stakeholders and speakers talking about the state of agriculture, food systems, and nutrition in the country, even as the country strives to achieve its Big Four agenda and its targets for nutrition and eradication of hunger in the country. And this morning, we're just about to start a panel to talk about what different stakeholders involved in food production and ensuring nutrition security in the country, what the different stakeholders are doing. And as Sylvia had earlier briefed us, we'll have the discussion for about 30 minutes and then open it up, because everyone seated here this morning is a stakeholder in this discussion that we are having, so that we have all the questions we have, all comments that you may have, to have a very open and engaging forum. So start thinking about those questions. I'll be introducing our panelists this morning. The beauty about it is that we have a representation, from policy, government, civil society, and so I'm looking forward for us having a very engaging moment this morning. I think we're just about, let's just get straight into it. I think we are good for that. So let me start by introducing our panelists this morning, and thank you very much for making time to be part of this important conversation this morning. So to my immediate left is John Gashigi. John Gashigi is the head of the Social Assistance Unit at the Ministry of Labor and Social Protection. Thank you very much for joining us this morning. And next to him, we have Habat Sheikh Abdi, who is Director of Primary Education at the Ministry of Education. Thank you very much, sir, for joining us this morning. We also have Harry Giyoshe Mwangi. Harry is the Director, Agricultural Research and Innovation at the Ministry of Agriculture and Fisheries. Thank you very much for joining us this morning. And to the far left, we have Jackson Ndegwa, who is the head Health Policy and Advocacy at CANCO. CANCO stands for Kenya AIDS NGOs Consortium, and the activities are geared towards promoting health and well-being of communities. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for joining us this morning. And I want to start with Mr. Mwangi. I know we had you before, and we are talking about where we are as a country in terms of the state of food security and nutrition security. From where you sit as Director of Research and Innovation at the Ministry of Agriculture, what are some of the strategies as a ministry that you are involved in? Kenya has a vision of achieving 100% food and nutrition security by 2022. Specifically, what are we doing to get there?
Thank you very much. Good morning. At the Ministry of Agriculture, we have already realized that if we do things the way we have been doing, we shall not be able to feed this country. We shall not be able to attain 100% food and nutrition security. We have come up with a strategy, agricultural sector transformation growth strategy. This is a strategy that will help us move on by focusing on small-scale farmers, value addition, and increasing incomes for our farmers. We are targeting to increase food production, that is productivity at the farm level, which has been not very good. We are also addressing our soil's health, and this will help us be able to produce food. The strategy will move, or rather is aligned to the Big Four agenda, where the government is talking of food security, we are talking of universal health, we are talking of manufacturing and health. If we could address agriculture, which has been the backbone of this country, I'm sure we shall be able to attain the four agendas that are being forwarded by the government. At the ministry, we are looking at the policies that will be able to support and create that good environment for our farmers, the private sector, and other partnerships that we shall have. We are also supporting research in this country that they may be able to address the challenges that we are facing in climate smart, in production. We need to have varieties that will be climate smart. We need to have breeds that will be ecologically suitable for the area, for the various ecological zones of this country. Thank you.
All right, and maybe just to stay with you, because research is very key when we talk about the vision that we have to get to 100% food security. And when we are talking about food security, it's both access and production. So are there specific, in a time where there are areas in this country where people cannot access food, and on other areas we have good production, and outputs from agriculture, so that it evens out from production to people who cannot access it? What is the nexus between the people who cannot access food, and what are the gaps, perhaps?
Let me say that in Kenya, we are 80% food secure. That is, at any point, you can be able to get food. The distribution of this food is one thing that we shall be addressing in the next phase of our operations. We would want to have movement of food from the high production areas to those other areas. We are also targeting in those areas that we should have irrigation, because Kenya's agriculture has depended solely on rain-fed agriculture, which we feel we should be able to move away from and increase our irrigation and support heavy investment in water in the ourselves. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. And of course, we'll be taking questions from you. Very important to put, questions to the policymakers that we have here today. Are we doing as stakeholders? Is enough being done to promote food security in the country? And I want to come to you, John Gashigi. You are in charge of the Inua Jamii program, which is a national safety net program. And one of the things you are mandated to do is to make sure that you have the hunger safety net program, making sure that people who are vulnerable to hunger have access to food. Talk to us about exactly how this works. How do you identify the people who are vulnerable to hunger and malnutrition?
Okay, thank you. At the Ministry of Labor and Social Protection, we are running the cash transfer programs, and currently we have got 4 cash transfer programs. One is called the Older Persons Cash Transfer, targeting the older people. Then we have got orphans and vulnerable children, persons with severe disability, and finally the Hunger Safety Net program. Within those 3 programs, we have in our payroll, we have got 1,330,000 beneficiaries who are benefiting from this cash transfer. And if you multiply by the average household size in Kenya, which is about 6, we are talking about 8 million Kenyans who are benefiting from that cash transfer every month. The money we transfer after every 2 months, but in total, we have an annual budget of 33 billion, which is going directly to the pockets of the cash transfers. And that is not small money. And the good thing is that all this money is tax financed. We don't have even a single coin coming from the development partners to support our cash transfer beneficiaries. And this makes the program to be sustainable. The objectives of the cash transfer program, number 1 is to reduce poverty. Number 2 is to build resilience. And then number 3 is to ensure that these beneficiaries, they are food secure. Because the moment they receive this money, more than 80% of that money go to consumptions. And the consumptions, almost like 100% is on food, whereby they use that money to buy food. From the small research we have done, we have seen that this money we are giving to the beneficiaries, it has really improved their livelihood, because most of them are poor and they're vulnerable. And to a bigger extent, it has increased longevity among the older persons. It has enabled the children to be retained in school and also even to perform very well in schools. And even some of those beneficiaries, they have been able to save some money and they have been engaged in productive investment. Some of them have even bought goats, they have bought chicken, they have got even other assets, and some are even doing income generation. But the biggest part of it is that it has improved their nutrition. Because once they get that food, they're able to buy cereals, they improve on nutrition status, and therefore they are living a healthy life. And when they live a healthy life, they are productive in their day-to-day activities. Thank you.
All right, and just to stay with you, Mr. Kashigi, when you do this program, make sure that people who are vulnerable to hunger then are able to access food. Access to food does not guarantee good nutrition. Are you also involved in educating the recipients of these funds about the importance of varying the food, or are you involved in any way about the nutrition conversation in your programs?
Thank you. This year, we are rolling out 2 programs to support the element to do with nutrition. Number 1, we are bringing on board a program called Financial Literacy Program. And within the Financial Literacy Program, we want to build the capacity of our beneficiaries on proper utilization of those funds they are getting. And one of them is to encourage them to eat healthy and also buy healthy food. So that way, we also encourage them, once they get that money, part of it, they can use it to buy like farm inputs, they buy fertilizer, they buy certified food. At the same time, they can buy a chicken, they can buy a goat, and then they multiply them, and then they can be able to milk and get nutritious food. Then number 2, we have a program on nutrition, whereby we are targeting like 5 counties. That one, we are targeting the mothers who have got children who are under 2 years. And that one involves an element of health education, whereby we are training this mother on how to take care of the children, how to feed them properly, how to take the children for growth monitoring, and at the same time do proper breastfeeding. At the same time, we are giving them a top-up. On top of the cash transfer we are giving them, we are giving those mothers a top-up of about 500 shillings. And that money is supposed to go 100% on food, nutrition, and also taking care of the children. And that component has got a conditionality that for you to qualify for this money, number one, you must make sure that you take the child for nutrition, for immunization, and at the same time for the growth monitoring, and also ensure that once you get that money, you buy milk and other nutritious food for that child. And we believe that if we address these children at their tender age, we are also building their body, their brains, and therefore they even perform very well when they grow up in school. Thank you.
All right, and Mr. Abdi, the place of education in this whole conversation, we are talking about agriculture, food production, food security, and nutrition. Where does education come in here in this conversation? And at the ministry level, then what is your involvement in this whole conversation?
Thank you, Sharon. Good morning, everybody. You know, at the Ministry of Education, we are basically a knowledge-based institution. And therefore, issues of agriculture and nutrition are inculcated right from the school level. Through our curriculum that is taught in schools, both at primary and at secondary level. Agriculture and nutrition, hygiene, these are basic components of our school curriculum. Methods of farming, the best types of crops for different areas, these are all issues which are taught within the school curriculum. But more importantly, at the Ministry of Education, we run what we call the school meals program. And if I retrace the steps of the school meals program, it began in the early 80s through partnership with the World Food Program. At that time, it involved in-kind food donation by the World Food Program, food that was sourced from the international community. Basically, that was meant for children in very, very arid areas, which were food insecure, and which are still food insecure. We have been running that program with the support of WFP for a very long time, until sometimes in 2008, the government, through the Ministry of Education, and with the help of the World Food Program, thought of how do we sustain the school meals program without the support of the international community. So we began what we call the homegrown school meals program. The homegrown school meals program entails a direct cash transfer to schools within the semi-arid areas. Of course, there are still those areas that you would not expect any food to be grown. Very, very arid areas, like Mandera, Wajir, Marsabit. Those are still areas which are dependent on in-kind food. But there are the semi-arid areas, some parts of Kitui, Tharaka-Nithi, Mbere, Makueni, Taita Taveta, Kilifi, some parts of Kwale. In all those areas, we transfer cash to schools. What is the reason for the transfer of the cash to schools? Our thinking then and now is that once the schools have received the cash, they will be able to source for food from within the community. And therefore, communities will have a motivation. They will have a reason for growing food because they have a market. And the market is the schools. And therefore, in so doing, we boost the food security. We boost food production. And we have been running that from the year 2009 to date, and we think we have been successful. And we therefore now want to roll out in as many areas as possible so that we can reach more children and reach more smallholder farmers so that they can also contribute to food security in the country.
Thank you very much, Mr. Abdi. And just coming to you, Jackson Degwa, to speak about the place of advocacy when we are talking about food and nutrition security. often advocacy involves addressing gaps in whatever kind of conversation is going on. When it comes to Kenya and the vision to ensure we get 100% food and nutrition security by 2022, what is your involvement in this as CANCO, as NGOs, and what are specific gaps? You know, it's easy to throw the big words of food security, whatever, but what are specific things that you are advocating for when it comes to making sure that communities are well-fed and have good nutrition?
Thank you, Sharon. Good morning. Thank you for that. I think there are a couple. The first thing is that civil society have a big role in terms of advocacy. And I think as we are aware, most of us are aware in this country, there are a couple of things when it comes to food nutrition security that needs to be looked at. I think one, we are aware of what we call weak multi-sectoral linkages. That's an important area for the civil society to continue doing advocacy work. I think also as we move on, there's a question of resources. Are we investing enough to address food nutrition security? That's, to me, it's a big issue. If you look at investment generally in terms of funding, and looking at food nutrition security as one of the big four, if you look at our budget for the last 3 years, have we made major increases in terms of budget allocation, both at the national level and at the county level? So there's a lot of work that needs to be done basically in terms of looking at funding, financing of food nutrition and security. And I think most important is also looking at it the way at the national level it has been prioritized. Is it the same way the counties are prioritizing that? I think there's a disconnect somewhere. I think the other issue, which possibly was mentioned some times back, we had the president say something, that in this country we do not have shortage of policies. We have enough. But how are we implementing them? We have had slow pace of implementation of some of those policies that currently exist. But how are we doing that, both at the national, but most important, at the county level, who are supposed to be dealing with some of these issues? So it also now links to, I think, my last issue, which is on capacities. When it comes to the counties to be able to implement some of those policies and be able to, to make sure that even as we move along and we have a vision of being food secure, possibly above or come 2022, we need the various players, and the county government are key important. I think civil society have their space and their role in terms of advocacy to make sure that some of these issues are well addressed. We also have a role in terms of accountability, holding the county government accountable. It can be the non-state actors directly. It can also be through empowerment of the citizens to be able to hold the county governments to account and be able to do what they're supposed to do. I think the other thing just to mention for me, and I think it can be linked into what the research team has just mentioned, is like in terms of addressing the first issue, we can learn from NAC, National Nutrition Control Council. We look at food nutrition security, or specifically even nutrition security. It's an issue that's looking at about 5 different ministries. You have education, you have agriculture, water irrigation, a couple of ministries, about 5 of them. But I think unless there's a way that these various ministries are coming together and looking at these issues from a deeper perspective and together, it's going to be a big issue. And I think the civil society has a role to play the convening role, and also the advocacy that is going to be important for all of us. So I think in terms of civil society, advocacy has to continue, accountability across the board, and also kind of at times we do play the role of modeling. The civil society do not have the resources to roll out service delivery in all parts of the country, but they can do some projects. I look at those projects as part of kind of models that they can be able to utilize and sell the ideas in partnership with the various either national or county government, and be able to sell some of those working ideas and how we can be able to push them forward. Yeah.
Right, thank you. And shortly I'd want to open it up to get questions from our audience today. But one of the goals of this conference is to enhance new commitments for the agri-nutrition sector. And I want us to just apply our minds to this. As you've mentioned, Jackson, we have good policies, yeah, all on paper. But what do we feel we need to do to get where we want to do, ensuring 100% food and nutrition security? And our theme is enhancing multi-sectoral approaches. So my question, which is now to all of you now, is how can the different players work together? Is there a coordination gap? How can we work better so that next year when we have the next agri-nutrition conference, we can take milestones, say this is what commitments we made last year and this is how far we've come. And we'll start with you, Mwangi. How can we work better together? Because we already have a big vision which is shared, but then how can we work together, and what is the role, what are the commitments we need to make to move forward?
Let me say this. At the Ministry of Agriculture, we are producing the food. Who are the consumers of this food? Here before you, we have the Ministry of Education, we have the Social Protection, we have the civil society. If we work together with the Ministry of Health, I'm sure we can always have a feedback, kind of, so that we can produce what is nutritious, what is good for our society. We are talking of having a healthy nation. Where do we start? We start from the Ministry of Agriculture. And when we are talking of that health nation, we are talking about our country. So all the sectors have a role to play. The Ministry of Agriculture will produce, our children will be healthy. The issue of social protection, we shall have elderly, healthy people. So at this forum, I should say this, we all have a role to play. The universities are doing research on nutrition. The research institutions are developing varieties and technologies which will help improve our food production in this country. So, in very few words, I should say, all of us have a role to play as far as food and nutrition security of this country is concerned. The researchers, the academia, all these have a role to play. The private sector, we said it the other day, that irrigation can be done best by the private sector. We said the other day, the issues of agro-processing, this one can go very well to the private sector. The government's role is to provide that environment. Good, my colleagues, realizes that we have good policies. The implementation framework of these policies should be very clear so that we can have that environment where the producers, where the processors, where the consumers are all covered. Thank you.
Right. Thank you very much. Mr. Gashigi.
Okay, as a State Department, we can make 3 commitments. Number 1, we'll ensure that we have come up with a social protection systems which has got food security and nutrition component in them. And we need to work closely with the Ministry of Agriculture and Ministry of Health so that we can have those systems. Because by the end of the day, our cash transfer beneficiaries, they are the farmers and they are also the consumers of the food. And also we are providing that money. So we need to come up with that system which is very well coordinated. Then number 2, we need to establish linkages. Because as it has been said, we are very weak in linkages. We have got policies, but those policies have the silo mentality. We have programs, those programs also have the silo mentality. Every department, every unit, every ministry is working on their own. But we can be able to improve the linkages. We can also be able even to bring value to whatever we are doing and also support our beneficiaries and our farmers so that they can have value for whatever policies or programs or whatever deliveries we are giving to them. Lastly,
just to ask you there, how do you see us improving the linkages? Where does that, what is the action point in your view?
I think the action point should come from this conference whereby we need to come up with an interministerial working group. And within that ministerial working group, we can be meeting maybe after every 2 months or after 3 months, and then we'll be sharing our experiences, our knowledge, and our programs, and then we can be doing like joint planning, joint implementation, and necessarily even joint budgeting. So once we have that and we maintain that momentum of meeting regularly, the left hand will always be knowing what the right hand is doing, and then we improve on it. Finally, as a State Department, we are intending to come up with a social registry, the first ever. And within the social registry, we want to come up like a database of all the poor and vulnerable Kenyans. And within that social registry, we'll have their details within our system. So that when it comes to issues to do with the drought, emergencies, or any other programs, we don't need to go to the field and look for that data. Data will always be there. Like in situations of drought, if the government wants to distribute family relief or NGOs and anybody, they don't need to go and now start collecting data from the field. They'll just be mining that data from the social registry and then using it. And we're also encouraging those agencies who are doing food distribution. Instead of doing hard cash food distribution, why don't you use our system you give in form of cash transfer? Because the moment you give the poor and the hungry cash transfer, they will have a choice on what type of food they want to buy, and then that way you're also empowering them, and also we are also now empowering our farmers and other our marketing agencies who are supplying food or something like that. So that's the commitment we are going to make as a state department. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and I like that you've proposed action points, interministerial kind of a task force, and these are the kind of things that help to move forward from a conference such as this, having action points and recommendations. And Mr. Abdi, from the school feeding programs, which has been commendable, I mean, I think everyone here at least has had an interaction with that program and seen how there are places where children actually just go to school because they know they will be able to get food. So the importance of that cannot be overstated. From where we are right now, having this conversation about also nutrition security, what do you feel are important commitments that will need to be done from an education point going forward?
Thank you, Sharon. I'd also let me say that from where I sit, multi-sectoral engagement and linkages are critical in the provision of school meals. I am alive to the fact that what we do at the Ministry of Education in terms of the provision of school meals is through a multi-sectoral approach. We have the National School Meals and Nutrition Strategy that we developed back in 2018, that was launched in 2018. And we developed it together with the Ministry of Health for the purposes of the nutrition component and with the Ministry of Agriculture. And it was launched in this same hotel by the 3 cabinet secretaries last year. Therefore, we take multi-sectoral linkages very, 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 very importantly. Now, back to the nutritional aspect. The meals that we provide at the schools, or that are provided at the schools, have the nutrition ingredients and components that ensure that the food that the children consume are of high nutritional value and are able to sustain them throughout the school day. Now, just like you said, maybe each one of us here may have interacted with the school meals. Probably not at the meals point, but each one of you may have taken Nyayo milk at one time or the other. That was the beginning of the school meals, the Nyayo milk in the late 70s. And the beauty is that there is a direct correlation between the school meals and smallholder farmers and smallholder farming. And that farmers at that level, not large scale, but the smallholders in the countryside have a reason to grow foodstuffs because they know they have a market for it. And apart from the market and the monetary value that the farmers get, but the children also get food on the table at the school. Now, educationally, in terms of the importance of the school meals, cannot be overemphasized, because in some parts of this country, and you may not be able to believe it, in some parts of this country, that meal that is provided in school is the difference between a child going to school or not going. and it may be the only meal for that child the whole day. I am a witness to instances whereby children get food in school but still keep a portion of it for the evening and take it back home. Therefore, the whole idea of the school meals is not only of educational value, but it's also of nutritional value, and also pushes forward the agenda of food security, which is part of the Big Four. And we hope that through the school meals program, we will be able to help this country achieve food security. Thank you.
Right. Thank you very much. And Jackson, I don't know if we've emphasized enough. We had a panel discussion yesterday just talking about the nutrition aspect of all this. And I know Dr. Tereme had actually mentioned this before, how important it is to talk. When we are talking about nutrition security, what are we talking about? So that you're not just full, but you're giving your body what it needs in terms of nutrition to boost your immunity and all that. So we have great blueprints globally in terms of the Sustainable Development Goals. We have great blueprints nationally in terms of the Big Four agenda. We have the strategy from the Agriculture Ministry to ensure food security. As an advocate, from an advocacy voice, you are the people who know down to the ground the vulnerable communities, that old person who needs specific kind of nutrition, maybe a sick person who needs access to particular kind of nutrients. Speaking for that kind of person, what kind of commitments do we need to make? Today we have representation from food producers, processors, and all that. What conversation do we need to have going forward?
Thank you. That's a tough one.
I know it's loaded.
That's a tough one, but I'll try. I think, yes, sometimes we say, for developing countries, we like saying that sometimes we know what needs to be done. We simply just don't do. It's so interesting that for us to be food secure, I think we have an idea, we know how we need to go and where we need to exactly do as a country. But I think one big thing that is missing, one big piece is political will. And political will, I don't necessarily mean political will at the highest level. I mean, I believe we have that. But it has to be cascaded down and go down there. It's at the county level that now the county governments are able to interact with the citizens. They're able to be closer and be able to see which are those pockets of those citizens that are really either struggling. Either you want to look at specific what you've mentioned, nutrition, it's about the trees, whether it's stunting, wasting, and all that. It's at that level. It is known, but I think there's the whole challenge of just doing what we can be able to do at that lower level. So there's a question of strongly building political will across the board to make sure that whatever we need to do in terms of improving what you've mentioned now, nutrition, we get to, to be there. The other thing is that I would love to see what we are doing today being done at the county level also. We need to, when we talk about multi-sectoral linkages and collaboration, it's not only what has been mentioned here at the national level. That can be done. I believe there is a lot of political will at the national level. I think we also need to see that at the county level, at that lower level, partners, players coming together and say the same has to be done so that we can be able to make sure that down there, majority of our communities are basically secure. At the same time, I also feel that we need to have more of, even as we move forward, even as we have these conferences, we need to look in such a way to turn them into accountability forums. Some of us who have worked in the other field, especially HIV, we usually make a statement and say sometimes some of our forums are the same old tired conversation of the same old people, the same people listening to themselves. I think we need to start to look for a way to turn our such forums whereby we are learning, we are speaking to one another, into accountability forums, and whereby we come and be realistic with what we are doing and realistic to the realities on the ground. How, what should be like the scorecard for each of the counties at such a time? Those counties that needs to hear, or the county representative that need to hear that message, are they sitting the same? Are we speaking to one another? And allow me to mention this and then quickly. We recently had a meeting somewhere in Nakuru with the members of the county assembly, and we are looking at a scorecard, and we allow them to speak to one another. And the facilitator, we allowed one of the MCAs to take them through the scorecard. And one of the MCAs told the leader of the majority, look at your ward, you're doing very poorly, you know. So we do have that responsibility of how do we convene forum whereby the counties, the people who are down there are able to listen and speak to one another. So even as we look at, we go nutrition, either specific or how we want to look at it or improving the nutrition status in this country, I think for me, those things are going to be very key. Down there at the county level, we just have to see how to have this kind of an engagement and discussion, and also make them feel like there's someone who is holding them accountable. And I think my last point, Sharon, is this one. At what point do we move with the citizens, the grassroots citizens? At what point are we creating demand and telling them nutrition is very important for you? This is an issue that you need to speak using your own voice to your county government. We do have a responsibility of creating those grassroots groups and model whereby they are able to speak on their issues that affect them and issues that matters to them. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Jackson. You've really mentioned important points. Accountability forums. That's why we are talking about what kind of commitments can we make even as we end this conference today, and what action points are we putting forth? Whom are we assigning this particular action points? Are very important, so that when we come back, we can do what you're calling the scorecard and see how we are moving forward. So we want to now throw this to the plenary to have questions from you. You know, we have representation from social protection, the Inua Jamii program, education, ministry in terms of research and policy, and also civil society. So if you have a question, just raise your hand, introduce yourself, and if you can, direct your question to any specific panelist here. Okay, we have hands here.
Good morning. Okay, I'm Salome Jemjor from Garissa County, and my question is directed to Director of Primary Education Officer. Okay, my concern is this, like the way you have said, primary schools, they are given cash to purchase food for schools. And it has always been my concern because all other children all over the country or other places in this country, they have farms, and the children can even get enough food even if they don't get balanced diet in their school. But in my area of work, like the interior parts of the county, there are no farms. And I'm imagining the cereals the schools are given, those micronutrients, those children are not going to get, and yet, throughout the term, most of the hours the children are spending in school. And when they go back home, those fruits and vegetables, they can't get. And also, in nutrition for children, we have about 7 food groups, and they are supposed to consume about 5. So it is my concern, what is the ministry doing to ensure that those children in the far interior are getting those micronutrients in their diet? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Jemjor. Just as a guidance, let's also, so that we spend more time getting the answers, to go punchy on the questions. Let's keep it short and direct. There's a hand that is all the way up.
Thank you, Sharon. My question is directed to Mr. Abdi again. I'm Caroline Ochieng from Homa Bay. I work with the Ministry of Agriculture. My concern is that in our school system, agriculture has been relegated to the back burner. We used to have a lot of engagement with the schools in form of 4K clubs and young farmers clubs, and that has really died down. And that is the place where children were brought in interaction with agriculture right from the grassroots. We don't have that anymore. that would have been a very good forum also for having fresh food like vegetables and fruits right at the point of use in schools. How can we get back to that place so that our children get the best at the very point of the use?
Thank you, Caroline. I think there's a hand right next to you, yeah?
Hello, thank you very much for the very nice discussion. My name is Christine Chege and I work with the International Center for Tropical Agriculture. It seems the Ministry of Education is getting quite a number of questions. Again, Mr. Abdi, to you. So you've really given us a very nice discussion about the school feeding program and you are doing a great job there. My question goes in the direction of the kind of commodities being accessible to these children. And yesterday we had a very good discussion on biofortification. So I'm wondering, are you currently considering biofortified commodities like the orange-fleshed sweet potatoes, high iron beans, vitamin A maize? Are these currently in your portfolio of commodities being considered for school feeding? And if not, could this be integrated? Because then when we talk of food security and nutrition, this I think would be one pathway to improve nutrition security for our children. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm interested in a question that is not Mr. Abdi. So that is Fred. Okay. Please, a microphone for Dr. Torome.
Thank you very much for that very good discussion. My name is Dr. Toromo, not Torome. Toromo.
Oh, sorry about
Chief
that.
Officer, Medical Services, Baringo County. Now, like yesterday, as I said, I did not see the full representation of Minister of Health. I would have expected the Director of Division, not Kango, of Nutrition. We have a section there. Now, today I'll not talk about vitamins. I know yesterday I talked about from A up to H. I'll just mention briefly about vitamin E, which is called alpha, beta, and gamma tocopherol. Deficiency leads to sterility, which has been proved experimentally in rats but not in man. B1, of course, I'll not talk about it today, but it leads to Wernicke-Korsakoff syndrome. Now the question is one, to the education. Curriculum. I don't know about the new system, whether you really enrich. When you were in primary school, we used to know very well in science, there was a nutritional aspect, so that even in questions, you tell a kid deficiency of vitamin C, they know it was scurvy, rickets. You enrich it with the new system. Again, back to the education, is that can you improve the school feeding program so that even if they don't get the right diet at home, whatever you provide in terms of lunch, it should be a balanced diet. Now, in terms of food security, there's somebody called Dr. Masika, who actually changed. He has changed in Makueni and household dams, where you can actually do irrigation at household level. And presently I've seen the Ministry of Irrigation extrapolating. I come from Baringo and I've seen them actually do some dams, 300 in some wards, so that you do kind of small scale irrigation. This will improve in terms of food security. Now, finally, I was in Botswana. I am serving second term in Baringo. I was Chief Officer Livestock and Fisheries at some point. And I had the opportunity of going to Botswana. Botswana Kenya Meat Commission works very well. And they say they learn from Kenya. And you as very senior officers from ministries, I don't know why our KMC is not working. This is one area where we can actually improve food production so that they benefit at the farmers level. Now, the cash transfer, I'm now to you, the Minister of Labor. It is supposed to be, I think, 65 or 80 years. You'll clear 70 years. Not everybody is getting. I think some chiefs are corrupt. Can you make sure that this is done very well so that everybody gets that 2,000? Now, finally, as I conclude, is that in terms of micronutrients, you need to do fortification so that you can put apart. I know already salt is iodized. You talk of iodized table salt. Can we put an element of zinc, the cobalt, the iron in other foods so that we don't get these deficiencies. Now, in the university research is paramount. Are we really getting what is right? Is it quality? Aflatoxin, we know it's associated with some cancers. As we speak, aflatoxin. How sure are we what we are consuming is right in terms of standards? Finally, asbestos is not related here. We have a lot of asbestos roof. It's not related here, but of the government, you will allow me. It leads to mesotheliomas.
Okay, let's take that
thank you.
later. I think I'll take one last one, and then we have those answered.
Thank you. My name is Kennedy Odongo. I work for Kenya Crops and Market Systems, Kenya Crops and Dairy Market Systems over there, under the Feed the Future project. My question goes to the agriculture guy and the social protection guy. You have mentioned issues of nutrition. We know that women are very critical people when it comes to nutrition. Social protection. People that are being protected under the social protection State Department are vulnerable people, children, and orphans. And the people who are in struggle in protection are women. So, in your programs or in your departments, are there any specific plans or strategies that you have to involve women, given that they are the integral people when it comes to social care and protection and in terms of nutrition? Even though the panel is a little bit gender insensitive, they're all men, we should have at least a lady. Thank you.
Good points there, Kennedy. I think let's take those ones. The questions to you, Abdi, I think there's some of them we can answer as one. The questions from Christine Chege about biofortification and the kind of commodities going to school. I think we tie it up to Ms. Chemjor's in terms of what is the ministry doing to provide micronutrients also to children. I guess just the balanced diet kind of a question.
Thank you very much. I'm going to combine a number of questions because they more or less touch on the same. The question on micronutrients, biofortification, and balanced diet. I think I will combine those. Under the homegrown school meals, which involves cash transfer to schools, we don't prescribe a particular menu for the schools because we know they come from different, schools are in different settings across the country. They could be, the setting in the coast may not be the same as the setting in Makueni, and it may not be the same as the setting in Kitui. And therefore, schools are at liberty to procure food, but there are certain basic tenets which must be observed. And therefore, it's our belief that whatever foodstuffs that are being procured by the schools are foodstuffs that are balanced in nature and also are fortified and have got micronutrients. Remember, we are not implementing the school meals program in isolation. We are implementing the school meals program in collaboration with the Ministry of Health Nutrition Department. And therefore, they are always on the ground with our people and advise them on what are the best micronutrients, what are the best additives on top of the three main food groups that we have so that children don't miss out on certain important mineral components that help them to grow intellectually.
And because it's a question that was asked a number of times, I feel it's important, that the procurement is left to the schools, but you offer the guidelines for what is needed? And are you involved in the, just follow up to make sure that actually even that school in Mandera is making sure, even if they cannot get fresh vegetables, then these nutrients are getting to the kids? Are you involved in the follow through, or where does that lie?
Sure, yes. We don't just leave schools on their own like that. Like I said, we work closely with the Ministry of Health and Nutrition Department to ensure that children don't miss out on any of the important components in terms of minerals, micronutrients, and in terms of balanced diet, to ensure that their growth is holistic and complete. I think that was one question. The other one was on agriculture in schools. I don't quite agree that we have neglected agriculture in schools. Agriculture has been and continues to be a very important subject in our school system. And wherever I have gone in this country, I have seen schools having kitchen gardens. I have seen schools having agriculture clubs. I have seen schools having school farms where children learn all types of agricultural practices and they grow their own food. Schools grow their own food and even grow excess for sale.
But is it part of curricula, or that the individual schools make?
It is part of it's part, an integral and very important part of the curriculum. Agriculture is still a subject taught in schools and examinable at a certain level. Therefore, it's not forgotten, it's emphasized. Kenya is an agricultural country. The backbone of this economy is agriculture. There is no way, as a ministry, we can overlook that.
I think we can take those for now. Yeah. There was a question about research, Mr. Mwangi, that are we doing enough research at the universities? And this actually falls squarely in your docket, the question of aflatoxins in our foods. Are we doing enough research?
Thank you. Dr. Ari has already walked out. But let me say this. We are reviewing the national agricultural research systems in the country. And when we do this, we shall be able to have linkages, very strong linkages, with all institutions that are doing research in the country. We have the local institutions like CARO. We have international organizations like IRI, ISIPE, and CIMIT, and we have our universities. All these are geared towards developing a very strong research system where the synergy will be felt. And we shall be able to tap at the experiences and resources from these international organizations. So as far as our ministry is concerned, we have a department that will coordinate research, both the local, international, and our universities. I would also want to mention something about the KMC Botswana. It's not called that way, it is Botswana Meat Commission. Well, they learned from us. Today as a government, we are looking at the operations of the Kenya Meat Commission because we feel is one very strong institution that will help develop the livestock industry of this country. So the government is doing something to review operations and support the livestock industry. Thank you.
Right, thank you very much. Then there's a question from Kennedy regarding the involvement of women. Women are right at the center of provision of food and also the nurture of children. So when we're doing all these efforts for social protection and reaching the people with actually getting the food and getting the right food, are we involving women enough? I think that was the question.
Okay, thank you. In terms of the involvement of the women, it is true that we are involving women in our cash transfer programs. According to the statistics we have, of the total beneficiaries whom we are giving the money, 65% are women, 35% are men. So indicating that much of the money is received by women, and once they receive the money, they make decisions on how that money is going to be spent. And part of that money is used on food consumption. The second part is that there's another category of our beneficiaries who don't receive money themselves, but the money is received by the caregiver. We have the orphans and vulnerable children. We have persons with severe disability. And because of their nature, the nature of those beneficiaries, they have a caregiver who collects money on their behalf. And in those two programs, more than 90% of the caregivers are women. So it is the women who receive the money on behalf of the beneficiaries, and they make a decision on how that money is going to be spent. The other question which was asked was the issue on the targeting. How do we do the targeting? I think, Sharon, you had also asked me about that one. In terms of targeting, we have got two methods which we use for targeting. Part of our program target the poor and the vulnerable. And for us now to reach the poor and the vulnerable, we have got two targeting methods. Number one, we have got community-based targeting methodology, whereby we involve the members of the community in doing the household listing by identifying those households within the allocations whom they feel that they are poor and vulnerable and they need to be included in the programs. Once they pass through that test of the community-based targeting, we now apply prox-means test. Now we use the scientific method of now targeting them, and then we rank them. We also give them weight based on their poverty level. And once we finish that one, we produce a potential list to be included in the program. We also take that list back to the community for community validations. Once they validate, we take them into our program. The second part is for the Inua Jamii 70 years and above. The 70 years and above is not a targeted program, but it is a universal pension scheme, targeting everybody who is 70 years and above, and it is also demand-driven. It's only for those ones who require it. All what they are required to do is they just go and do the registration. But the only component we are part of the society we are not including in that 70 plus and above are the pensioners, because the money comes from the government. So if you are 70 years and above, when we are doing the enrollment, just come, and then we are going to enroll you, you join the program. So in terms of the corruption, I'm not aware about any. But for the ones we were doing the targeting, I won't say that we don't have errors. We have errors of inclusion and also have errors of exclusion, but they are minor, they are not many. Thank you.
All right, I think we have 6 more minutes, so we can take the next round of questions. Let's keep it short and brief so that we can answer as many as possible. Let's go to the back. We've not really been fair to the back side of the room. There's a hand there. Oh, okay. Then we'll come there.
Good morning. My name is Lillian from Kenya National Bureau of Statistics. I'd like to touch on something that you've said about having actionable points and having this like an accountability forum. Last year we talked a lot about food safety issues. That was one of the main things that came out at the second Agri-Nutrition Conference. And maybe tying to the discussion that's coming today, mostly about, let me touch on schools. Do we have an idea of aflatoxin contamination of the foods through the school feeding program? I think that can be something actionable. Thank you.
There's this question.
Good morning. My name is Margaret Gatero, working in Nairobi City County, Department of Agriculture. I have a question for the Social Security. You've just said that you are going to roll out a program of educating mothers on nutrition for those with children under 5. I was just wondering whether you are going to do it in collaboration with other departments, or whether you have your own staff and whether you'll be doing it at group level, that is if there are women groups, or is it at the health center or at individual level? My other question, sorry, is for Bwana Abdi. I just wanted to know whether there is a policy on the usage of lard within the school for food production. Thank you.
My name is Dr. Paul Kangede, a veterinary surgeon working with KTN Farmers TV. I have a question for Harry Mwangi, for agriculture research. We've said that Kenya is 80% food secure, but there's been so much research going on in the universities, and that research lies in the library after someone getting their master's, PhDs. What are your strategies to make sure that these the recommendations come down to the farmer so that they can help us as a people, because the purpose of education is to change society? My second question is on youth engagement and empowerment in agribusiness. How are you trying to do that? Because if then the youth and the majority are not involved, I think that we may be losing out on some of the important aspect of agriculture. Thank you.
Yeah, I think we can take two last ones.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Elizabeth Herman from World Vision. Yeah, thank you for the good discussion. I have two questions. One, it was mentioned on Tuesday, there's a lot that we lose in the post-harvest, around 30%. So we were just interested to know what is being done to ensure the 30% is recovered, because 30% harvest of total Kenya is a lot. And secondly, value addition. What is being done to ensure there is value addition in our harvest that can really serve the country during off-season? And as he had said, how are the youth engaged? Because they can really be engaged, and they can really earn through the post-harvest processes. Thank you.
Right, one last one. There's a hand here. Oh.
Yeah. Habari ya asubuhi. Majina yangu ni John Rioba Meng'anyi kutoka Migori. Swali langu linaenda kwa mhusika wa social protection. Katika cash transfer tunajua tuko na 4 wings: hunger, safety network, older persons, persons with severe disability and OVC. Kama wahusika, mtaenda kuongeza wingi ya 5 ambayo itaguza mambo ya nutrition, ama itakuwa tu ni hivyo the 4? 2. Tangia mkutano huu uanze, nimekuwa nikisikiliza tu maneno mengi yameongelewa yakihusu maeneo kame na maeneo yaliyo na upungufu kidogo. Je, yale maeneo mengine ambayo tuna wakulima wazuri na wahusika wazuri yatahusishwaje ili waweze kutia bidii, wasiweze kurudi katika ule uzembe wa kusema kwamba kwa sababu kule cash transfer inapeanwa, sisi ngoja tusembee pia ili na sisi cash transfer iweze kuja kwetu. Mwisho, vikao kama hivi huwa vinaongozwa na maofisa. Kila mtu naposikia akijitambulisha ni ofisa, ni ofisa, ni ofisa. Ni wapi ambapo vikao kama hivi vitakuwa na maofisa kama nyinyi wa kiwango hiki? Na pia wale washikadau wa chini mashinani, akina mama na vijana wale ambao ni idlers kule chini, waweze kupata ujumbe huu ili waweze kutia bidii katika kutuongezea mambo yetu katika kuleta mapato na chakula mezani. Asante.
Asante sana. Nadhani itakuwa swali ya mwisho.
Good morning. My name is Simon Eris. I work for NHP Plus Samburu County. My question is to go to the social department, especially in the issue of cash transfer using M-Pesa system, because most of those cash transfer use M-Pesa, and in Asal counties, most of the areas that are not covered with the network, and most of the vulnerable people are in those areas, and sometimes we get they are so disadvantaged, especially even the elderly. And the little money they get, they use a lot of it for transport to get the place where there is network. So what are the strategies are put in place so that those people, they are rich and the little money they cannot use for means of transport for them to get the money. And the last question regarding the same, the form of recruitment of those clients, especially using the community. Sometimes we get a lot of them vulnerable in the facilities. If possible, the department can use the facility as one of the point for recruitment, especially the children and the mothers in the Imam program in NASA. Thank you.
Right. Thank you very much. In case there's a very burning question, one that does not tie to any other question asked, stand, not your hand, stand so that the microphone comes to you. One that is on its own. So we'll take that one as the last one. Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, you already have the mic.
Good morning. My name is Hannah. I'm from Laikipia Health Department. I want to ask from the social protection concerning what are the linkages that have been established. As we know, most of your beneficiaries are the old concerning health, universal health coverage, for we know those are the most that are vulnerable and they have chronic diseases.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Immaculate Mutua, coordinating nutrition activities in Marsabit County. My question goes to Mr. Abdi, Minister of Education, Director. In Marsabit, when you're doing the food security survey for July, August this year, it was recorded from the Ministry of Education. The school dropout for primary was at 12%. And this was accrued to the inconsistency in the food in schools. So for me, it is very risky when we are having school as a bait to have children come and feed and also advance the education. What is the future of consistent and reliable feeding programs? Because this has been handed over to the government from WFP. And are we going to experience the same, and for how long? And are we going to compromise education by losing this supportive component of school feeding program? I've benefited from this in my primary school. It is very key. Are we going to have these children more vulnerable to lose this integral part of schooling and miss the big picture of education, which is, we are saying it's universal for primary school, and also the total transition. Secondly, my question goes to Mr. Gashigi from the South. We have the cash transfers for the elderly. And as it stands, we have 2 cash transfers, the over 65 and also the over 70s. There are also older citizens plus 70 who are not receiving this cash transfer, which also there is a cohort for 65 plus which are receiving. What are the key challenges that the State Department of Social Protection is facing not to have the older citizens being covered, and also the medical cover, which is the NHIF? There are those bureaucracies that the grassroots, and would find these people are referred to the chiefs, and they're not given even solutions to be covered under this. We know the vulnerabilities, the dental, we know the optical problems, which have an effect in the outcome of nutrition in old age. What is the way forward to have these old citizens protected and cushioned so that we can also address the issue of food and nutrition insecurity in that cohort? Thank you.
Right, thank you very much. I think we'll take those. They are very representative. And I'll take them in no particular order. I'm sure we've been taking note of the questions directed to us. I'll come to you, Jackson, in a bit about involvement of youth in all these things we're talking about, agribusiness, agri-nutrition, and all the interventions. Even as you carry out your advocacy work, to what extent are we involving young people who are the majority of our population in getting this solution? So I'll come to you in a bit so you can think about that. There was a question. Maybe we can start with the last question, Mr. Gashigi, about the key challenges you are facing in implementing these cash transfer programs, particularly to do with the older people not being covered.
Okay, thank you. It's true that we have got two cash transfers in one. One is for the senior citizens who are 65 years and above, and that is a targeted program targeting the poor and the vulnerable. And then we have another one for the 70 plus, which is more or less universal. According to the statistics which we had previously before we did the current census, we have got about 1,070,000 people who are 70 years and above. Out of the 1,070,000 years who are above, we have got about 700,000 who are already enrolled in the cash transfer. So that means that we have got a population of about 250,000 people who are 70 years and above, but they are not in the cash transfer. Their expectations is too much. They keep on coming to our offices to ask that, now that we have turned 70, when are we going to be enrolled in the program? So from where I sit, we are now waiting for a policy decision to be told, can you go ahead and enroll them? But for that policy decision to be made, there has to be a budget allocation. For us to enroll the people who are 250 into our program, we require about 6.8 billion Kenya shillings every one financial year to enroll them in the program. So if we can be able to get this budget allocation, we will be able to enroll them. So the challenge we are having is the expectation of those people who are 70 years, their neighbors are getting, but themselves they can't get. So that's the biggest challenge we are having. Thank you.
All right, let me stay with you to answer the question about universal health coverage, even as we endeavor to provide social protection. Is it a guiding kind of a thought when we are doing this?
The government is implementing the Big Four agenda, and then within the four big agenda, the Big Four agenda, there's a component on universal health coverage. So within that one, there's a proposal to have a NHIF cover for all our beneficiaries. The 1.33 million beneficiaries who are already within our program, to provide them with a non-contributory health insurance cover. But now when it comes now to that coverage, it is not within our mandate, it's within the mandate of Ministry of Health and also the NHIF. Ourselves, all what we need to do is that we provide them with the data of all the households whom we have enlisted, and even the information where they are located, the nearest healthy facility. Once we provide them with that data, they'll get their budget allocation, they enroll them, and then they start now giving them the health insurance cover. But it is very, very important, because we have also noted that our beneficiaries, the moment they get the cash transfers, a bigger portion of it also go to meeting their health needs. They go to buy medicine, they use it for transport to go to the health facilities, and also paying maybe for their health needs. If we can have them covered within the health cover, it will mean that the remaining money or the bigger portion of the money will not be used on health-related issues, but they will use it on food and nutrition. And to us, that will be a big plus, even for this conference.
Right. Thank you. Mr. Mwangi, there's that question from Dr. Kang'ethe, who's my colleague at KTN. That transfer, and it was addressed the first day. There's a lot of research that is sitting in libraries. Are we intentional about accessing this body of information that we are getting from the scholars and use what we can from it into actionable policies and stuff like that?
Thank you very much, Dr. I think when we talk about agriculture in this country, we are talking of a very elderly farming community, and we need to include the youth. The government is in the focus of large-scale farming, where we see an opportunity for the youth with those academic qualifications, where they can practice what they have done. So, during our opening session, it was clearly stated that we are not adulating the importance of the small-scale farmers in this country, but we are also focusing on large-scale farming, where large-scale farmers, where they can employ the youth with those academic qualifications so that they can be able to practice that. Two, the country has already developed the research agenda through NACOSTI. And one of the priority areas is increasing production and productivity. The other area is research on value addition through the value chains. And lastly, research will focus on post-harvest. We lightly have put it that we lose 25 to 30% of our agricultural produce. So the country is already aware, the government is already aware, and through NACOST we are going to address the value chains. We are also going to address post-harvest losses. With the farmers, I'm sure we are sitting here, we are all Kenyans, and we see what is happening at the county level. There is a lot of investment in infrastructure. And this definitely will help the movement of the commodities from the production areas to the market. So this is one area the government is supporting our farmers. Because we don't want to have a situation where products cannot move. Si ni kweli tumetoka kwa kijiji kila mmoja wetu. We can see what the county governments are doing. We can also see what the national government is doing. It is investing very heavily in infrastructure. Today, if you need mangoes from the coast, you can have them sanane. Sindio na USGR. So I feel the government is supporting and will continue supporting the farming community of this country. Thank you.
Thanks, and thank you for addressing all the questions that were directed to you. Mr. Abdi, I'll finish with you because there was a number in just a bit. I'll see how we can condense all the questions that were directed to you. But let me go to Jackson about youth involvement. How important is it? Are we doing enough? And how important is it?
I think it's important we get to involve the youth at the various level. He did ask a question around agri-nutrition. I think quite important in terms of enabling environment for them to be able to thrive in that. I think he has talked about something that is very important, infrastructure, as they do that. I think also our youth also needs a lot of support in terms of trainings and the capacity for them to be able to produce something that is quality. Someone talked about value addition. I'm looking at it within the value chain. This is what basically we also talk about market access, specifically for the poor. These young people need to get support so that they can be able to have market access. Along the way, if they're able to produce a quality, a kind of agricultural product, then how are they able to access their markets across the board? So I think youth involvement is going to be very key. We are aware about how youths are very innovative in terms of whichever way across the board, whether it's within the agricultural production, they can be very innovative, the question of bringing in technology. But I think if we factor in the youth, we are likely to see much more space in terms of the qualities and possibly the type of foods we are likely to be producing. So whether the reality is that we have to consider and think about the young people, the youth's involvement across the board, whether it's even from what I'll call the education angle, them being able to receive that education, how nutrition is important to them, and even the question of production. I think we cannot run away from that, and I'm sure there are various mechanisms within the government systems. We even have the ministry that is focusing on that, and I believe that that ministry looks across the board on the various gender, women, youth issues across the board. So I think we cannot emphasize that, and the youths have to be part and parcel of the solutions that we're going to come up with. So thank you.
Thank you. There's this important question that we got from Margaret from Nairobi City County regarding educating mothers on nutrition, and how is this being implemented? Are you collaborating? Was that a question for social protection or Mr.? I think let's answer that before I go to Abdi. Are you implementing this in collaboration with the county, with the other partners, in terms of educating the mothers, particularly mothers who have children under the age of 5?
It is true. The cash plus agenda we are implementing to supplement the cash transfer we are doing it in a collaborative manner through multi-sectoral approach. And especially the ministry we are working closely with on the nutrition component is the Ministry of Health and also the county government. Because the county government, they also have got the Ministry of Health, they have got also the nutrition component. So on those ones, we are really working on them. And also now when it comes to the financial literacy, we will bring on board the Ministry of Agriculture. Because as we are training our beneficiaries on financial issues, we also need to train them on how to produce food, and especially kitchen gardens and all those other things. In terms of the approach we are using one strategy and one structure. The strategy we are using to implement the Cash Plus agenda is the beneficiary outreach strategy. The beneficiary outreach strategy is whereby we want now to have a conversation between the implementers and the consumers, that is the beneficiary, on how we can be able to interact and share information, and also we use that one to pass our messages through. And within that beneficiary outreach strategy, we are using the already existing structures. Within our cash transfer program, we have the lowest structure called beneficiary welfare committees. Beneficiary welfare committees, these are committees which comprises beneficiaries themselves or the caregivers themselves. They are the bridge between the government and the beneficiaries. So those are the structures we are going to use when it comes to the capacity building, training, and also reaching the beneficiaries, because they are beneficiaries themselves and they are also in touch with the other beneficiaries on a daily basis. So in terms of the capacity building, that is a structure we are going to use. That is a structure which we also link to our structures on the ground, like the county government, the Ministry of Agriculture, the Ministry of Health, and any other related structure, so that we can work harmoniously using one approach and also using one structure which belongs to the beneficiaries themselves. Thank you.
Thank you. There was a question now to you, Abdi, still from Margaret. Is there a policy on the usage of land by the schools?
Do I start with that one, or I can start?
Or you can address them in whatever particular order.
I think I'll address them in the order that they
Okay.
came.
Okay.
Let me start with the one from the lady from Marsabit on consistency in the provision of the school meals. I think she has touched a raw nerve for us at the Ministry of Education. And we have to admit that after the handover of this program by the World Food Program, we have had gaps in terms of the provision of the school meals. You know, as a government, our procedures and our financial transactions are completely different from the ones that are used by the World Food Program. And because of those differences, there has been gaps, particularly late last year and early this year, in terms of the provision of school meals. That we have to admit. And I'm sure you may not know, but our resources at the Ministry of Education for use by the school meals program are kept at the National Treasury. So as a ministry, we don't keep any money at all. What we do is do what we call a requisition. And when we requisition for funds from the National Treasury, we don't know when those funds will be made available to us. Anybody who is in government knows about exchequer releases and the time that it's taken for that exchequer to be released. Anybody who's in government knows how long the tendering and the procurement process in the government takes. It's not a walk in the park. It takes not less than 2 months to procure and effectively deliver on items. And therefore, as much as we have those challenges in terms of acquiring the resources that we require for the provision of the school meals, we are working very closely with the National Treasury to ensure that we have got timely releases of resources to enable the school meals program to be effectively implemented. And we'll continue to work closely with the National Treasury, because one day or 1 week, that is lost in terms of the provision of school meals could mean quite a lot for those children in those areas. And I appreciate that question coming from Marsabit. On the issue of land policy, for food production in schools, I don't think we have a land policy. But schools are at liberty to use their land in whatever way that they want, because the land is theirs. And as a ministry, we encourage them to use their land optimally, in the best way possible. And if there is space for food production, they are at liberty to do that. So we are not going to give directions for them on how to use their land. It is their land, and they have got the overall responsibility for using their land in whatever way that they want. But any portion of that school land that is meant for gardening, kitchen chambers, is very welcome, and we encourage as a ministry. The last, it was on food safety. Whether we ensure that the food that is delivered both through the in-kind modality, the direct food procurement, and the one that is procured at the school level through the homegrown school meals, is safe for use by children. I can assure you that whatever food that is delivered at the school is tested by the Kenya Plant Health Inspectorate, and that it is secure, safe, and good for human consumption. We cannot gamble and play with the lives of children through provision of substandard food that may have aflatoxin or other poisons and end up with hundreds of thousands of children who are sick. We can't do that. So as a ministry, we are committed to safety, 100% safety, and fit for human consumption of the food that is made available at the school level. Thank you.
Asante sana. Thank you. You've addressed all the questions thrown at you. Before we wind up and break up the panel, there's the question of money matters are very sensitive. The question of transfer using M-Pesa, I think it's very important to address that, Mr. Gashige.
Okay, thank you. As a State Department, we are continuously improving on the delivery of the cash transfers to the beneficiaries. And we have come a long journey. From last year, November, up to date, we have now adopted a choice model as a form of payment to the beneficiaries. This choice models enables the beneficiaries to make a choice on the payment service provider they would like them to be providing them with the cash. And we have contracted 4 banks, KCB, Equity, Cooperative Bank, and Post Bank, whereby we have opened bank account for all our cash transfer beneficiaries. So all our beneficiaries now are receiving the money using their bank account, using the 4 banks. And within that model, we have put it in such a way that the first 2 withdrawals, beneficiaries withdraw, are free. The government pay commissions for them. And then if they do balance inquiries, the first 2 balance inquiries are also free. And then that bank account is not only a conduit for the cash transfer, it also has a store value, where beneficiaries can use that bank account to save money. If we give them cash transfer, they can withdraw part of it, they can also save. And if they have got product they sell, they can also use that account to save the money. And if money is transferred from diaspora or anywhere else, it can be sent to those bank accounts. So now our cash transfer beneficiaries, they are bankable, like me and you, they have a bank account and they are very proud about it. The good part of it is that those bank accounts are linked to the agencies. And agencies are spread in all the 47 counties, in all the 290 constituencies, in more than 4,000 locations. So including the remote areas, our beneficiaries are able now to access the money using the agents. And also when they go to withdraw from the agents, they are not charged anything, the government pays for them. In terms of paying through the M-Pesa, as a government, we are not paying through the M-Pesa. Because when it comes to the transaction cost, M-Pesa is more expensive than the bank account. Because for the M-Pesa, you need to pay money for the sending and also money for the withdrawal. But if you compare with the commission we are paying the banks, it is so less. And then when it comes to the reconciliation, it might be very difficult for us to reconcile. But because beneficiaries have bank account, they can now make individual arrangement with the banks. They can get now an M-Pesa option whereby they can be able now to withdraw the money in their account through the M-Pesa. That way it is on their own. At the same time, our beneficiaries, because we are giving them a credit card, that credit card, they can also use it to withdraw money from the ATMs, which are either PIN-enabled or they are bio-enabled. For the senior citizens, because we are using the bio as a factor of identification, they can also use an ATM which is bio-enabled, and they can be able to access their money. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I think, ladies and gentlemen, we've addressed most of the issues that we were hoping to. And let's just continue with this conversation. It does not have to end at this particular moment, at this particular place. But thank you very much to my panelists for engaging us in this conversation this morning. Thank you very much. John Gashigi is the Head Social Assistance Unit at the Ministry of Labor and Social Protection. Asante sana. Habat Sheikh Abdi, Director of Primary Education. Asante sana. We have Mr. Mwangi, who we've actually had a conversation even before, and also a panelist on Monday. Hari Giyoshe Mwangi is Director, Agriculture, Research and Technology at the Ministry of Agriculture, Livestock and Fisheries. Asante sana. And Jackson Degwa, who's Head, Health Policy and Advocacy at CANCO. CANCO is Kenya AIDS NGOs Consortium. Asanteni sana. Thank you for your time. And thank you to ladies and gentlemen for being very active participants. I believe we've had a healthy conversation. So right now we are going to take a short break. We are inviting you to take a cup of tea. Half an hour I think is good enough. We can reconvene at midday sharp for our final part of our program today as we end. Asanteni sana, enjoy chai, and see you in half an hour. Thank you.